Have you ever felt lost, as if you were sailing in the middle of an ocean with no lighthouse to guide you? Maybe you've lifted your prayers to heaven asking, "God, are you there? Can you hear me? Why can't I hear you?" It's such a human feeling, so real. In those moments, our soul longs for an answer, a sign, a divine whisper to confirm that we are not alone. Sometimes life can feel like constant noise, the worries of everyday life, the opinions of others, our own doubts and fears. In the midst of all that chaos, discerning God's voice can seem impossible. But let me tell you something. God is not far away. His voice is not inaccessible. He longs to speak to you more than you want to hear him. He is like a loving father, leaning over his child, whispering words of love, guidance, and purpose. But to hear him, we need to learn to tune into him. Before going deeper into this content, I invite you to be an active part of this mission. Subscribe to our channel, activate notifications, and share this video, so that this message reaches more people who need to hear his voice. I also want you to declare your faith in the comments by writing this phrase, "I am ready to hear the voice of God." Write this as an act of faith and commitment, and also as an inspiration to others who may be struggling to find that divine connection. If you are here, it is not by chance. God has a purpose and an important message for your life, something that can change everything. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you are about to discover can transform your relationship with him in profound and unexpected ways. This is the moment he has prepared for you. Don't miss it. Perhaps you ask yourself, "Why can't I hear him? Am I doing something wrong?" Don't beat yourself up for feeling this. Even the great heroes of faith, like Moses, David, and Elijah, went through seasons when God's voice seemed distant. But here's the truth. God never stops speaking. He is always present, waiting for us to open our hearts and tune our spiritual ears. Listening to God is not an art reserved for a select few. It is a promise. Jesus himself said in John 10 verses 27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." This means that if you belong to him, if you have surrendered your life to his care, his voice is available to you. So how can we tune into that voice? How can we learn to discern it amidst the noise? In this video, we will explore 3 powerful verses that not only teach us to listen for God's voice, but will also transform the way we relate to him. These are not magic steps or quick formulas, but timeless truths that, if you apply them, will open up a new level of intimacy with your Creator. So, take a deep breath, relax your mind, and open your heart. This is a spiritual journey that can change everything for you. God is speaking. The question is, are you ready to listen? John 10 verses 27. "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." This verse encapsulates the essence of our relationship with God. We are his sheep, and he is our shepherd. Think of a shepherd who lovingly and devotedly cares for his flock. The sheep don't need to shout to get his attention. They are simply close, listening and trusting. In the same way, hearing God's voice begins with the personal relationship we cultivate with him. Jesus is telling us that our ability to hear him does not depend on our abilities, but on our identity. If we are his sheep, if we have placed our faith in him, his voice is meant to be part of our life. But here is the key. The relationship is reciprocal. He knows us deeply. He knows our fears, our doubts, and our struggles. And yet, he calls us, guides us, and loves us. Listening to his voice takes time. It's like any relationship. The more time we spend with someone, the more easily we recognize their voice. In this world full of distractions, we need to be intentional about staying close to our shepherd, listening to his word, meditating on his truth, and praying with a sincere heart. Only then will we be able to hear his voice, not as distant thunder, but as an intimate whisper that resonates in our spirit. Psalm 46 verses 10. Be still, and know that I am God. The noise of the world can drown out our ability to hear God. We get so busy with our tasks, goals and worries that we forget to stop and just be still. This verse is a divine invitation to pause, to let go of control and allow God to be God. Stillness is not only physical, but also spiritual. It is an act of faith that says, Lord, I trust you enough to stop, quiet my thoughts and listen. In that stillness, we discover not only his voice, but also his character. We know a God who is faithful, powerful, and gracious. When we learn to be still, we create space for God to speak. It is in that silence that he can calm our anxieties, correct our course, and give us the peace that passes all understanding. Just as a still lake reflects the sky with clarity, our hearts reflect his will when they are still. Perhaps you are uncomfortable with silence, because it is where your fears or insecurities surface. But remember, it is precisely in that place that God meets you. Stillness is not a waste of time. It is a gift that opens the door to deeper communion with your Creator. Isaiah 30 verses 21. And thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying unto thee, This is the way, walk ye in it. This verse reminds us that God's voice is not only comforting, but also practical. He is a constant guide, speaking to our hearts, even at times when we are unsure of what to do. His direction will not always be a shout. Often it is a whisper that tells us, This is the way, follow it. God does not leave his children in confusion. When we face difficult decisions or find ourselves at a crossroads, his voice directs us to the truth, to what is right. But to listen to this direction, we need two things: obedience and sensitivity. Obedience to follow his guidance, even when it seems contrary to our logic, and sensitivity to discern his voice in the midst of so many others. Imagine a father teaching his son to walk. At times, he holds him firmly. At others, he lets him take steps on his own, always attentive to intervene if necessary. This is how God is with us. His voice is there, telling us where to walk, but also allowing us to grow in faith and trust. If you are looking for direction today, Isaiah 30 verses 21 is a promise for you. No matter how uncertain the path, his voice will be there to guide you, reaffirm you, and walk with you. Listening to God not only transforms our lives, it also gives us the courage to move forward with purpose and security. Practical application: how to listen to God's voice in daily life. Hearing God's voice is not something that happens by chance. It is not a matter of waiting for him to speak in the midst of our daily busyness. Rather, it is an active, intentional, faith-filled process. Just as we build a relationship with anyone through time, dedication, and care, our relationship with God also requires effort. Here are some practical steps we can take to tune our lives to his voice. 1. Take time to be silent. We live in a noisy, fast-paced world. The constant bombardment of notifications, conversations, and worries can make us lose sight of what really matters. But if we want to hear God's voice, we need to create spaces of stillness. This doesn't mean just sitting in a corner, but creating an inner space where our minds and hearts can be open to him. You may be thinking, but how can I listen to God if my thoughts are always racing? That's normal. God knows what is inside us. What He expects from us is a willingness to be in His presence, in stillness, even if only for a few minutes a day. This stillness becomes a sanctuary where we can focus solely on Him. It starts with small moments. When you get up in the morning, turn off distractions, close your eyes and take a deep breath. Simply say, "Here I am, Lord." Speak, "Your servant listens." This simple act of surrender opens a direct channel to God. If you do it regularly, you will begin to notice a difference. Your mind will become accustomed to hearing His voice, and, eventually, you will find it easier to discern it amidst the noise of the world. 2. We continue with another practice you can implement to hear God's voice, and that is pray with an open heart. Prayer should not be just a monologue in which we launch our requests to God. Prayer should be a conversation. Opening our heart to Him is key to hearing His voice. Sometimes we think we have to know exactly what to say to get our prayers right, but what God really wants is our honesty and vulnerability. Pray authentically, without masks. Ask specific questions. Don't be afraid to be honest with God. If you have an important decision to make, say, "Lord, what do you want me to do in this situation?" If you are struggling with a feeling of uncertainty, ask, "How can you guide me in this time of doubt?" God is not a distant and inaccessible being. He is pleased to give us wisdom and direction, and in doing so, His answer often comes in unexpected ways. A word in Scripture, a clear intuition, or a peace that only He can give. The key here is to keep an open heart, willing to receive God's response, no matter what form it comes in. The peace He gives is not a peace that depends on our circumstances, but a deep peace that transcends all understanding. At times, that peace is the voice of God, telling us that we are on the right path. 3. Wait and discern God's answer. After praying, it is essential that you wait for God's response. Many of us, in our impatience, expect an immediate answer, as if God is obligated to respond instantly. But remember, God's answer can come in many ways. A specific word in the Bible, an inner conviction, or even through the circumstances that arise in our daily lives. It is important that you learn to discern these answers. Psalm 46 verses 10 reminds us, "Be still, and know that I am God." Sometimes God's answer is not something that can be heard out loud, but something that is felt deep within us. If you feel an inner peace after praying, or a sense of certainty in your heart, it may be Him speaking to you. Discerning God's voice also means being attentive to small coincidences that are often not coincidences at all. It may be a conversation you overhear, a verse that appears in your path, or a piece of advice from someone who gives you light at just the right moment. When you seek God with all your heart, you begin to see how He speaks to you in the smallest details of your life. 4. Practice obedience at every step. Hearing God's voice is not only about listening, but also about obeying. After receiving clear direction, the next step is to act in faith. Isaiah 30 verses 21 tells us, "This is the way, walk in it." Obedience is a sign of our trust in God. At times, His direction will challenge us to step out of our comfort zone, but in those moments, we must remember that His will is good, pleasing, and perfect. Obedience to His voice opens doors to new blessings and opportunities. Although God's direction may sometimes seem difficult to follow, remember that He always has what is best for you. Throughout history, Those who obeyed God's voice found purpose and peace, even though the paths they took were not always easy. 5. Live in community and seek wise counsel. Sometimes listening to God's voice is not a solitary process. We live in a community of believers, and it is important that we share our questions and concerns with others who are also seeking God's voice. Wise counsel and prayer together can confirm what God has already been speaking in our hearts. When you doubt what you have heard, don't be afraid to ask the opinion of someone who walks close to God. The Bible says in Proverbs 11 verses 14, "Where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors is victory." God often uses others to confirm the direction He is giving you, a call to confidence and growth. Hearing God's voice is not a one-time event or a sudden miracle. It is a journey of transformation that does not happen overnight. By taking time to be still, praying with an open heart, waiting and discerning His response, and obeying His direction, we move closer to His perfect will for our lives. This is not an instantaneous process, but a relationship that grows, matures and deepens as we trust Him more fully. At first, it may seem difficult, even daunting. You may feel like you're not hearing clearly, or you may struggle to discern His direction in the midst of so many voices and distractions. But I want you to remember this. Every step you take in faith is a step toward a deeper relationship with your Creator. God is speaking, and He is ready to lead you down the path He has prepared for you. God is not in a hurry to talk to you. He waits patiently, inviting you to draw closer to Him day by day. And the most beautiful thing of all is that, as you seek His voice, He is also seeking your heart. Your willingness, your faith, and your time with Him are what He values more than any external sacrifice. I encourage you to keep seeking His voice, even when the answers don't come right away. Patience is an act of faith, because faith tells us that God never delays, but that He always has the perfect time to reveal to us what we need to know. Sometimes the wait feels long, but it is in those times that our trust in Him grows stronger, and our relationship becomes more solid. Each moment of waiting and prayer transforms us, prepares us, and attunes us to God's eternal purpose for our lives. God has not left you alone in your search. He is with you every step of the way, guiding you, molding you, and perfecting your ability to hear His voice. Remember that patience is not just about waiting and doing nothing, but trusting that He is at work even when we don't see immediate results. Today, I invite you to surrender completely to this journey of growth. Trust Him, for He is faithful, and with each step, you will move closer to His perfect purpose for your life. Don't give up in the process, because every moment in God's presence is leading you to a future filled with peace, purpose, and divine direction. Keep seeking His voice, keep trusting in His guidance, and you will see how, in time, you become someone who walks with clarity, wisdom, and a heart filled with a peace that only He can give. Your relationship with God is growing, and so are you, step by step, day by day. Keep walking in faith, because God is speaking, and His voice is clearer and closer than you can imagine. Thank you for joining me today on Mastery and Faith. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Here are 2 videos that will surely interest you. Click on any of them to go deeper into these topics and strengthen your spiritual life. Let's continue searching together for wisdom, peace, and understanding. God bless you, and see you next time.